Hello everyone watching this video. I hope it will be helpful to all the IGCSE Business Studies students. Syllabus code 0450 on how best to approach the paper 1 questions. Paper 1 carries 4 questions, which has 5 parts from part A to part E. So I'm going to explain ways in which you can utilize for you to get an A star in this subject. So to begin with, you need to understand the following. First part, knowledge. You need to have a greater understanding of the business studies terminology, business studies concepts, and simply the jargons, and the issues that relates to the question. That's the first thing. Secondly, application. You need to relate your answer to the scenario or the STEM given in each and every question. So try to use words from the STEM or scenario as application, and the reference must be appropriate and in relation to the point that you have stated or mentioned. Think about the product or products being produced by that particular business. Think about the number of branches or employees. Identify the amount of revenue, amount of costs, amount of profits, the type of business organization. Is it a sole trader, a partnership, or a company? Also identify the method of production they're using. Are they using job, batch, or flow production? Also identify their marketing strategy, if any, in that particular STEM. And many more areas can be considered as application. Thirdly, think about the analysis. Analysis is about developing the fact that you have mentioned, developing your point in a way that is going to make you get all the marks. So how best can you do this? You must show the effect of your answer to the business scenario. Show the effect to the owners of that particular business, depending on the question that you are facing. You can utilize words such as this leads to, this results in. These leading words may assist you to fully develop your answer in a way that will make you get all the marks. And lastly, evaluation. And this applies to the part E questions only. You need to assess or weigh the option or options given. So I'm going to explain more about this in the following slide. Part A, mostly, it calls for you to define a business terminology. So you need to provide a full definition, which is short and precise with no examples, as there are no marks for examples in such a case. And in some cases, you may be asked to identify 2 ways of production, 2 ways of motivating employees, and if question says identify, you need to state the facts with no explanation, and that will allow you to get the 2 marks. And part B calls for you to identify. And remember, in such a case, you need to state the facts without giving any explanation. But in some cases, you may be asked to calculate. And whenever you are calculating, you need to provide first the formula and show a clear calculation up until you arrive at your answer. And at your answer, you need to provide also the currency, if any, and a percentage sign. Normally, when you're calculating the profit margins, you need to also put the percentage sign. Part C calls for you to explain. So whenever you're explaining, remember this, there are 2 ways to do this in business studies. It's either you analyze and you apply, or you do both. So in such a case, if the question carries the name of the owner or the business in it, you need to apply your answer to the scenario. But if not, you simply need to analyze your answer. So there are 4 marks awarded to such a question. The first mark is for you to state the fact. Then you either analyze or apply, depending on the question that you have. Then part D, it calls for you to outline. Outlining in such a case means you're supposed to state first the fact, you analyze it, and then you go on to apply your answer to the scenario. And these 3 will make you get 3 marks times 2, 6 marks will be awarded for such a question. And lastly, we'll talk about part E, where you are supposed to justify your answer. So in such a case, you may be given only 1 option or 2 options that you're supposed to assess. So if there are 2 options you're supposed to assess, you may need to first provide a positive side on that first option you are in support of. Provide a positive point. And how can you do that? You must give a good fact and analysis. And this will make you get 2 marks. And then you go on to look on the negative side of the other point or option that you have. And also you must use words such as however, on the contrary, on the other hand, etc., to show a clear transition from one side to another. And remember, fact and analysis is what you're supposed to provide for you to get 2 marks. After doing that, you need to justify your answer. Which option are you in support of, or do you consider as the best? In that case, you need to provide a fact and analysis to support that particular option. And you need to provide also a negative point to go against that other option you are not in support of. So remember, fact and analysis. So you must use words such as however to show a clear transition from the positive to the negative point. So let us now go on to talk about the following example and see how best we can use all these areas to respond to the questions. We have a question right here. This is a scenario or a STEM that you are supposed to read first before you respond to the questions. DNG provides electricity to 16 million customers. It is a limited company, which means DNG's shareholders benefit from limited liability. DNG is planning to stop using coal to produce its electricity. Pressure groups had an influence on this decision. The managing director knows there will be an opportunity cost to making this change. She is considering the best way to communicate this important information to DNG's 6,500 employees. So I always encourage my students to identify first the areas to be used or that they can use as application for part C, D, and E in some cases. So in such a case, their product they are providing is electricity. To how many customers? 16 million customers are benefiting from this. And also it is a limited company, which is owned by shareholders. And the shareholders, they always have the limited liability. And they are planning to stop using coal. And there are also some pressure groups which have an influence on their decision they're about to make. And they also talked about opportunity cost in this question. Underline it as well. And then lastly, we can talk about the number of employees. They have 6,500 employees. So after doing this, you can go on to respond to the questions. Let's go to the first part. Part A, define opportunity cost. And remember, you need to provide a full definition and do not give examples. So you can say it is the value of the next best alternative forgone when a choice is made. Then you can get your 2 marks in such a case. There is one more point given there, right, that you can also go on to provide for you to get your 2 marks. Then part B, it says identify 2 limitations of using the number of employees to measure the size of a business. And remember, if a question say identify, you need to state the points or the facts. You don't need to explain them. All right, so number 1 fact there, you can say it does not account for capital intensive business. By saying that, you get your 1 mark. Or we can go on to say the next point, it could have many part-time employees. And by saying that, you can also be awarded 1 mark. And remember, you don't need to explain the facts or the points. You may go on to say as well, it may give a different indicator of size to other measures used. And remember, you need to only identify 2 facts. If you provide more than 2, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, or other points will not be considered, but only the first 2. So try to think about your facts before you put them on paper. Let's go to the part C. Part C, it reads, outline how having limited liability might benefit DNG's shareholders. So your answer must relate to DNG's shareholders, not the business in general, but only to the shareholders. So your first answer there, remember, in such a case, you need to put across effect and application. There are 4 marks. So effect, application times 2, you get your 4 marks. So the first answer there that you can put across is shareholders' risk is limited to the amount invested. That can be your first point in this electricity business, and that will be also a mark for application. Second point that you can put across, you can go on to say it protects personal assets. That is also a fact. In case the business decision to contribute to sustainable development does not work, and that is an application. So fact, application, then you get your 4 marks. And remember, you don't need to simply analyze in such a case, but you need to apply your answer to the scenario for you to get the 2nd mark. Then part D says, explain 2 ways a pressure group might influence DNG's decision. And in this case, you are supposed to write first the fact, analysis, and application. Then you get 3 marks times 2 ways, then you get 6 marks. So the points that you can talk about here may include, number 1, creates negative publicity. That is a fact. And the APP there, about impact of using coal. And then what? And this may lead to its reputation being damaged. That's analysis. Show a clear fact. Analysis and application. And this is a good effect on how the negative publicity will affect the business. And next point there, you can say organize. They may organize customer boycotts. So if customers stop buying your products, and how many are they? 16 million customers will stop buying your products. And this leads to what? This leads to fewer sales and or less revenue. Also, profits may be reduced afterwards. So there should be clear effect, analysis, and also application. And then another point you may think of, you can say they may organize demonstrations or protests about electricity production, that is application, which could reduce investment in the business. And that acts as your analysis. So remember, fact, analysis, and application times 2, then you get your 6 marks. And your points should be clear, not vague. All right. Then let's go to the last part, which is the most tricky part, part E. Explain 2 methods of internal communication a large business could use to share important information with its employees. Justify which method should be used. So in this case here, you may simply go on to explain first the 2 methods that you have identified. And in this case, we have the meeting and the email. So you first explain what they're all about. Then you go on to justify, to show which one they should use. So number 1, a meeting. A meeting, it allows workers to receive the message at the same time without any delay. That's how a meeting works. Then secondly, talk about the email. An email, the message can be sent to multiple people at the same time, and they can also refer back to their information later. That's how an email works. So you first provide good explanations about those 2 methods of internal communication. Then you go on to justify which one they should choose and which one they should let go. So if you choose a meeting, you must provide a positive point to support meeting. So a meeting will allow employees to ask questions to confirm their understanding of the important information. Whereas an email is better, as it may not be possible to get all employees in a large business together at the same time. So that is a negative point. That is why we are not going to choose an email as the best method of internal communication, but rather a meeting. After doing this, you're gonna get 6 marks. 2 the meeting, 2 the email, and 2 for the justification that you've given down there. So always there should be evaluation, and this can be shown by using words such as whereas, however. Such words, such conjunctives should be used to show a clear transition from one side to another. Thank you very much for listening. And for more information, if you want to contact me, my name is there and my email address and also my cell phone numbers are available on the screen. Thank you for listening. I'll see you again in the next video.